So with Mercury, you're always to see, well, the mind could get, it could like, you get a glimpse. It could be thinking like this, it could be thinking this. At any, whatever level you're looking at it at, there's going to be this type of stress. However, if you're going to interpret a planet and try and understand it, it's going to be colored by the signs. It's going to affect the houses. And if anything, you can ignore the planets. You still have to work with the planets and the signs and the houses to see how to express it best and how to always keep struggling to make it work well. But what the planets do is the stress patterns, by seeing them, it lets you, the astrologer, have a sense of the complex of the other person and the complexity. Still, the aspect isn't going to necessarily help you solve the situation. It'll help you realize, okay, that's really there. How do you work to make this better, rather than how do you add a little more light to this than darkness to this in a day? If you want something and you blindly desire something, or lustily ask for something, or enviously after someone, you can't think straight. What kind of memories are you getting? You're building things up. You're going into the dark side. That's why they call envy, lust. These are some of the 7 deadly sins. So it's funny how these play, because Venus can say, if I can't have him or I can't have her, nobody can. There. So you already make a thinking, and you're thinking that value. Your values condition your thinking. They limit how much you can think. And each that moment you have that value and you're thinking like that, you're creating memories that go into your memory bank that's solidifying that this is what's seemingly real. How foolish we all are. Easy to be humbled. But sometimes it takes a long time to listen to it. I'd like to say it took three marriages to sort my heading out, but really it took 3 divorces before I realized I might have had something to do with it. And so even in there, it's not black and white, it's all this textures. It's a matrix, and it's how we're navigating. It's the streams we make through this. But as we do these streams based on our memories, based on what we want, it starts to affect how we think, or how clear we think, or how muddled we get, or how biased our thinking can get. And once we're in a pattern, and it becomes a behavioral habit, oh, it's really difficult to change these habits. And the habits are what's shoveling today into our memories for tomorrow. You know, so today is the, let's see, today is the, yesterday, I'll have to remember this. There's a quote about plays on yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and memories. But if you can see that, if you get a glimpse of it, wow, you're not all the so when we're born, we've chosen to come into life. We want to be alive. We want to use everything we've got as best as we can. We want to be as much moon as we can. We want to be as much thinking as we can. We want as much desire and wants as we want to get, as much as we can get. Every planet is trying to get experience, and we will. We're going to gain experience every minute, every day of all of these planets. That's coming into life to see what you can do with it. That's the ego. That's the body. That's the life. But when it doesn't work right, when it's not, when you're realizing, whoa, where did this get to? Well, why isn't this working? Why isn't it going? And what's real? Then the spirit, at some point you get pathetic and you open up and the spiritual voice comes in and you start having to let go of the memories, let go of the desires, stop the thinking, turn it inward and be silent. And you have the healing factor using the 3 main yogas to fix the inner part of you, so that then you fix the inner part a little bit. Boy, when you start putting energy out like Mars and Jupiter, it's going to make a huge difference. Okay. So in a certain way, this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There's different levels running into each other. But really, we're looking at one planet, Mercury, how they affect each other. And it's okay not to have a clear definition, but it's you want to tune into the energy. Oh, that's that. So if someone's got a really difficult Mercury moon, they could be a great writer. They could be writing about their memories and talking about things, but at the same time, those habits, if they start worrying, could be really negative, or it came out of somewhere. And someone could have that, but you might not be able to want to get close to them because they're just taking everything personally all the time, and it's seemingly too neurotic or too worrisome. But at the same time, how they got it, how someone got to be who they are, how they used their mind, how they built it, how they got to be anyone you meet. What an incredible mystery, Mercury Moon. What an incredible mystery, Mercury, Venus, to think, how are you going to communicate it? How are you going to use your mind to get what you want? What's next? Are you going to come back with another line? Are you going to find another way to talk about it? Are you going to ask for it? Are you going to find another scheme to get what you want? Are you going to charm to get what you want? People, there's so many ways people can find ways to get what they want, and thinking about how to do that. Some people are content with a few little things. Some people are really greedy and want the whole works and more. And you're never satisfied. All of these things affect the way you're thinking and the way you communicate. And really, they set at a certain vibration that determines who even comes close to you in your life or not. Who's going to tell you if you're vain is something you have to discover yourself. And yet, it's in some situations that's very acceptable. Okay, so this is a beautiful part of this. This is where astrology starts coming together. It's just almost a non-verbal way, but you recognize these dimensions, but they're all mixed up in a salad, like a salad dressing, all mixed up. We're seeing them all together. And then as we're looking at it, we're separating them out into here's the oil, here's the vinegar, here we're seeing the different layers and observing them, but really in their functioning, they're all mixed up and working with each other. And the person is the total example. The person is whose chart you're looking at is the definition of the chart you're looking at. And you can only see it as well as you've matured in your own life. So if you're doing a chart for someone, they're much more spiritually evolved, or they've worked inwardly, they detached some of these things, you're not going to be able to see it. And you can be talking to someone who knows much better how they should deal with things than you do, but you're still looking at the chart and trying to advise them. In such a situation, you just don't want to say things that are stupid or things that are biased. You want to get the simple things that might be useful for that person to know anyways, even if they've resolved it better than you have. So really, when we're working with the timings, we start seeing when a planet is afflicted. When that planet's being afflicted, then we back up and do all the things in the chart. And that's when this yoga of the planets and the signs, planets and the houses, and these aspects come in to see the different levels that this could be working at. That's when you might be able to get a glimpse of the spiritual work of someone or just the outer achievements of someone. There's many people on the planet that in their own intelligence, they just have closed off any idea of subjective or inner development. It's just what you can get out there. I'm not going to change that, but it doesn't invalidate them. They're free to try it, but sooner or later, our heart cries out. Okay. Yeah, so the Venus, it's always seducing the mind. What I want, what I like this, I don't like that. Let's get out of here. This isn't nice. I want so Venus is riding on the back of Mercury. Well, really, Mercury is the horns, the antenna on top of Venus, even has Venus in its symbol. How going to get away from us? It's a good symbol in that way, because the emotions, which are more real, what you like or dislike, what you want, or what you think you want, or what you think. And you're having to think about what you want to try and get it, because that's going to justify what you're really trying to do. And and your attempts to do things that live up to those thoughts are going to be shoveled into your memory. And you can do it totally wrong, and it's still going to happen. The soul is still going to gain the experience, whether it's totally right or totally wrong. Okay, so any little thing you start getting into, every little thing, the deeper you get into Venus, the deeper, even if you have a difficult aspect between Mercury and Venus, you still have to make Mercury work in the sign it's in. You still have to make Venus work in the sign it's in, and often they're in the same sign, especially when they're stressful and they're really working as one functioning unit. Wow, then it's hard to separate your mind from your emotions. So feelings about the past, that's the moon. Emotions and desiring and wanting or not wanting, that magnetism is the Venus. Okay, so this is the inner the inner worlds. And like, you could maybe divide it more. I find just by looking at the stress patterns and not stress patterns between these levels of consciousness, it opens it up for me, and it adds to the signs and the houses in a really nice way without me just overthinking everything or just defining you have this aspect, so you're like this. And 9, it can be 1,000 things, and you might say, oh, it's just one thing, and you could be way off because you're on the right mark, but it was one of the other 1,000 things, not the one that you mentioned. Oh, I'd never do that. You know, I never drink too much. My husband's the alcoholic. You know, like, it's still. So these things happen. The work is to heal these things, to not clutter up the memories, to get good memories or light memories, to get the mind room to have peace in itself, to be alert to the moment rather than manipulating every moment. And to have the choices get content, where you're content with yourself and you're not having to project, I need to have this, I gotta have this, I want this, like, without letting your emotions get out of control, to have some balance and some moderation. That would be great. So when these things are in place, wow, that person will have a magical depth that anyone close to is going to enjoy being close to them, because they're not their personal habits and thinking and desires aren't disturbing other people's matrix. How many people live more for other people's matrices than for their own? So if Mercury is above the horizon, you're inclined to think out what other people's matrices. But if Mercury is up and Venus is down, or you start getting into different patterns, so you're starting to see what it is. The sign, like, no matter what difficult aspect is there, the sign it's in is going to be stressing the sign it's in. Those signs naturally stress each other at energies, and they're part of the whole, and they're just part of the whole process, neither necessarily good or bad. Same with the houses. But trying to change the concept of, or evolve the concept of stress, is just, how do you come alive to this? If you have this, how are you living? How does it unfold around you? How did it unfold around everybody has these things in one way or another. So for me, it's as you're knowing a chart, as you're knowing a person, as you're knowing yourself, you come to know each of the planets. They're like the gods or the genies or the angels, or they're like different layers of consciousness, and we tune into them, we relate to them, sometimes well, sometimes poorly, and the whole play of life goes on. Okay, so when it comes to the sun, in a way, these are the most obscure, but they're really valuable to see it like this. So just like how many good positive thoughts did you have? More positive thoughts than negative thoughts today? Oh, in any moment, in any hour. Oh, in our world that we seem to be living in, there's way more. I can't say there's way more negative thoughts, but it seems to be we're pulled into them way more. Of course, we're more unhappy because of that. That turns the thoughts into worries. The worries go into memories that turns into depressed feelings. These are spiritual dilemmas, not necessarily psychological dilemmas. So psychology takes it to a certain degree, but not far enough to heal it. Okay, I spent a lot of time in these inner ones because there's not a lot written about them. And a lot of times the transits of each of these planets are also fast. They last for a few hours, maybe a day. But in the progressions, things happen with these planets that come up and affect years of your life. A complex or a pattern will set in. And then you can see, wow, I've really been working this whole thing through over years. And you begin to become able to tune into that. It takes time. Don't rush to get to predictions. You have to know the natal chart well. You have to be able to put it together. Then you have to be able to see how the transits trigger it off. And once you got that, then you can begin to see how the inner factors work. Okay, sun. Mercury can only be 28 degrees from the sun, so it can be, as it goes around the sun, it can make 2 conjunctions. You know, like everybody has different things. Like when you look at your chart, like